Claressa Shields just detonated her own week on the timeline, and by the time the smoke cleared, an army of onlookers had already reached the same verdict. Papoose, once again, treated her like an afterthought. For 7 straight days, she typed, posted, screamed into the group chat that is Instagram, and clapped back at every commentator who dared breathe near her name. And every single time she hit send, the reaction wasn't sympathy. It wasn't defense. It was that quiet, brutal noise the internet only makes when it has already decided you are losing. This is not a rumor. This is a live-streamed unraveling, and the whole city is watching. What began as a few captions on a Sunday morning turned into a full-blown weekend hurricane by Monday afternoon, and by the time the calendar flipped to a new week, she was still trending for reasons none of her team could have wanted. Every fresh post from her seemed to add gasoline to a fire she started herself. The timeline did not cool. The timeline compounded. Reaction videos multiplied by the hour. Screenshots got passed around like currency. Group chats lit up. Podcasters cleared their schedules. And through it all, the loudest voices online kept firing the same accusation, that instead of holding her tongue and letting the noise die, she kept feeding it, kept dragging it back into the spotlight, and kept turning what could have been a 2-day story into a full weekend siege on her own reputation. In the eyes of the people watching this play out, she didn't look like an Olympic champion this week. She looked like somebody unraveling in real time. Welcome to The Breakdown. I'm your host, and if you're new here, buckle in because we're about to slice this entire situation open, one layer at a time. Every rumor, every receipt, every whisper the internet has been trading all weekend. Nothing softened. Nothing skipped. This is not one of those breakdowns where we tiptoe around the hard truths. This is the full autopsy. So grab a seat, grab a drink, and let's get into it. Here is the setup. The whole thing kicked off on a Father's Day weekend that was supposed to be, in theory, a family holiday. But if you ask the folks tracking every move Papoose has made this year, Father's Day looked less like a family holiday and more like a public statement. He was not lighting up her comment section. He was not reposting her. From every angle the timeline could see, Papoose was somewhere else entirely, and the silence from his account said more than a full paragraph ever could. That silence is what set her off. That silence is what she has been reacting to ever since. Silence, when it comes from someone who is supposed to be your public partner, is louder than any diss track ever recorded. And the reaction was loud. Loud enough that even people who had zero interest in this triangle started tuning in. She dropped post after post, some emotional, some defiant, some that looked like she was punching at ghosts on the timeline. To her defenders, it was a woman standing up for herself in a public arena that had already picked its favorite. To the other camp, it was a masterclass in how not to handle a private situation in public. And the argument between those two sides is exactly why this story refuses to die. Every side thinks the other side is missing the obvious, and that stalemate is what fuels the algorithm's love affair with the whole saga. Let's slow down and talk about the thing nobody wants to say out loud. The loudest voices online insist that when a partner keeps drifting, keeps ducking the hard conversations, and keeps showing up only when the cameras are rolling, that is not a relationship, that is a public relations arrangement. They point to the fact that Papoose, on paper, is still a married man. The paperwork has not been signed. The story has not been closed. And no amount of vacation photos, no amount of red carpet smiles, no amount of matching outfits can override a legal document that still exists. That's the drumbeat that refuses to fade, and it is louder this week than it has been all year. A ring on paper still speaks louder than a caption on Instagram, and everybody with a phone knows it. The way they see it, if a woman is out here on the internet begging for flowers, begging for shoutouts, begging for public affirmation, then the relationship itself is the problem, not the people typing about it. That is a brutal read, but the timeline courtroom has been repeating it for months, and this week's meltdown only made the argument easier to make. She has been reacting to bloggers, to podcasters, to random comment section users, but the one person she has not been able to force into engagement is the one person the world thinks she should be pressing. And that gap between where her energy is aimed and where the actual issue lives is exactly what turned this weekend into an all-out feeding frenzy. When your smoke keeps missing the target, everybody watching starts to wonder if you already know the target is out of reach. Then there is the other detail nobody has forgotten. The wife of the man in question has spoken publicly about this situation more than once. Whispers still swirl that Papoose has not fully collected his belongings from her home. And the phrase, "keep my wife's name out your mouth," a phrase that reportedly came directly from him, is now permanently stitched into every conversation about this saga. Those whispers are still floating around unverified, but they are stitched into the culture at this point, and no amount of denial from the parties involved has managed to unstitch them. Once a phrase like that lands, it does not float away. It becomes evidence in every follow-up conversation, whether the parties involved like it or not. That is the point the other camp keeps hammering. They argue the picture she is trying to paint of a stable, adult, public romance simply does not match the picture the internet keeps receiving. No matter how many photos get posted, no matter how many interviews get scheduled, no matter how many playful captions get dropped, an army of onlookers has already concluded that something about the framing does not sit right. And in the eyes of those people, this is not a real relationship being lived. This is a storyline being marketed. When the marketing budget is louder than the emotional receipts, the audience notices. And this audience has been noticing for a long time. On the flip side of the coin, Remy Ma has been having what can only be described as a summer. The kind of summer that makes rivals sweat and fans post fire emojis at 3 in the morning. Her collaboration with French Montana and Max climbed straight up the charts and stayed there. Her name kept trending for reasons that had nothing to do with drama, everything to do with wins. She was hosting morning shows. She was courtside at Nick's celebrations. She was walking to the premiere. Her new film dropped that same weekend, and the reviews poured in hot, people calling out plot twists, praising the performances, sharing spoilers they swore they wouldn't share. That is what a career looks like when it is firing on all cylinders. That is what New York royalty looks like when the crown fits. And it fits, right now, better than it has fit in years. And that is where the story gets combustible. Because while Remy Ma was stacking win after win, Shields was posting rant after rant. And the internet, being the ruthless comparison machine that it is, put those two timelines side by side and drew its own conclusions. Some of those conclusions were fair. Some were savage. All of them landed on Claressa Shields. Timing in the online arena is everything. And the timing this weekend was cruel because every silver anniversary of a Remy Ma achievement seemed to line up perfectly with a fresh Claressa Shields outburst. The universe, or the algorithm, or both, appeared to be scoring the fight in real time. Then came the moment that pushed the entire conversation into a whole different atmosphere. She showed up with a fresh orange hairstyle. And on any other week, that would have been a beauty post, a stylist tag, a fashion moment. But this was not any other week. This was the week Remy Ma had been rapping about orange hair. Coincidence or not, and the timeline courtroom does not believe in coincidence, the copycat allegations started flying before the salon chair even cooled. Whether she meant it as a shot, an homage, a tribute, or a total accident, the internet had already labeled it. And once the internet labels something, unlabeling it is nearly impossible. That orange hair became a talking point in every reaction video that dropped for the next 72 hours, and the theories multiplied like they always do when the internet gets a fresh visual to chew on. That was gasoline on gasoline. And she did not step away from the fire. She stepped closer. She dropped more posts. She responded to more critics. She fired off statements that some of her own supporters wished she had left in drafts. And every response only fed the algorithm's hunger for more of the story. Every reply became a rerun on somebody's channel. Every caption became a thumbnail on somebody's short. Every screenshot became a slide in somebody's roundup. The economy of the situation had officially outgrown the people inside of it. Same as every other week, the comparisons kept rolling in. But this time the comparisons had teeth. The other camp fires back that there is no real comparison to be made, that Remy Ma is operating in a league that Shields, for all her boxing dominance, simply has not been invited into on the entertainment side. She has decades of hip-hop credibility. She has hometown loyalty in the Bronx and beyond. She has a public image built brick by brick over years, not months. And that difference is not a knock on Claressa Shields, it is a statement of the terrain she is trying to walk on. Two different arenas. Two different rulebooks. Two different scoreboards. And the internet, always eager to force a fight, kept pushing them onto the same card. Then let's talk about Papoose himself, because a lot of viewers noticed something specific about his 2026 rhythm. Whenever there was a red carpet, a podcast, a Tamron Hall booking, or a Breakfast Club interview, he was suddenly right there, smiling, posing, holding hands, playing the part. But when the cameras dimmed and the hashtags stopped trending, he seemed to evaporate. The everyday moments, the grocery runs, The couch selfies, the small stuff that actually proves a relationship exists, those were nowhere to be found. Vacation posts, sure. Big event photos, sure. But the quiet, unphotographable love that fans actually crave from a real couple? That was the missing puzzle piece. And in relationship math, the missing piece is often the whole point. That gap is what fueled another wave of chatter. The other camp fires back that some opportunities may be slipping through her fingers because of the noise around her, though nobody has been able to confirm the exact deals or the exact numbers. What they can confirm is the pattern. Her frustration keeps landing on everybody except the man they say she should actually be addressing. And that misdirected fire is exactly why this story keeps regenerating like a bad video game boss. Every time you think it's done, another form of it appears with new health bars and new attacks. And Claressa Shields keeps swinging in the wrong direction. Meanwhile, over on the other end of the story, Remy Ma keeps getting called every version of royalty the internet can invent. The Knicks celebrations were a coronation moment. New Yorkers came out for her. The media came out for her. Even random passers-by stopped to acknowledge her. And more than one commentator has speculated that Papoose himself would have loved to be inside that circle, part of that energy, tapped into that hometown love if only the current arrangement of his life allowed it. That last part is speculation. But it is loud speculation, and it fits the puzzle a little too well. And if you have ever watched a man look at a room he used to belong in, you know the expression. Papoose, this week, seemed to be wearing that expression on the inside, even if his outside stayed silent. Now, if you ask the folks tracking every move, she simply was not able to give Papoose what he was quietly looking for. That is the read many are running with, whether it is fair or not. They argue Papoose entered this arrangement with a set of expectations that were never fully explained to the public, and those expectations, in their reading, have not been met. That is not a fact. That is an opinion. But it is an opinion that is being repeated so many times per hour that it has started to feel like consensus. And in the online arena, feeling like consensus is basically the same thing as being consensus, whether the truth agrees or not. Then there is the New York factor. The other camp fires back that New York, as a city and as a culture, has been slow to embrace Shields because she has thrown too many jabs at Remy Ma over the past year. Whether that read is accurate or not, the perception is real. And in the internet economy, perception is currency. The Knicks celebration sealed it. Remy Ma was welcomed home like family. Shields, meanwhile, was still typing. And the visual of one being celebrated in a stadium while the other was defending herself in a comment section is exactly the kind of contrast that the algorithm loves to spread. Papoose, for his part, has been doing the one thing that adds the most fuel to a story like this: nothing. He has not been publicly sharing her posts. He has not been amplifying her wins. He has not been jumping into her comment sections to shut down the trolls. In fact, one of the details the loudest voices online keep bringing up is a snippet of a Papoose rap clip where he talked about backdooring and delivered a line about somebody's girl backdooring them. Was that a message? Was it just bars? Depends on which side of the internet you subscribe to. But it did not land quietly. Nothing this man does lands quietly anymore. Every syllable becomes a subtweet. Every subtweet becomes a screenshot. Every screenshot becomes a video. That is the ecosystem Papoose is now operating in, whether Papoose planned for it or not. Then let's stack the receipts nobody wants to talk about. There was the widely circulated report of an $8 million deal attached to Shields' name. There were her own comments hinting she expected to earn even more. There were fans doing the math on live streams. There were podcasters running the numbers with calculators. And there was a slow, uncomfortable realization drifting across the timeline: the money, allegedly, is not all guaranteed up front. Part of it, according to reports, depends on future fights actually happening. If those fights get delayed, get watered down, or, worst case, do not happen at all, the number shrinks fast. And that is where the story stopped being drama and started being business. Because drama is what fills timelines. Business is what fills bank accounts. And this week, drama started actively working against business. Fans expected a fight announcement last week. The date came. The date went. Nothing dropped. No press release. No poster. No opponent. No venue. Just silence. And silence, in the boxing world, is louder than any bell. The other camp fires back that the delay could be linked to the ongoing back and forth with Alicia Baumgardner, but that link has never been confirmed. What is confirmed is the frustration. Fans want the fight. Promoters want the fight. Networks want the fight. And every day it does not get announced is a day the online drama chips a little more paint off the value. In a sport where visibility is oxygen, the wrong kind of visibility is carbon monoxide. And Claressa Shields has been inhaling deep breaths of it all week. The loudest voices online argue that too much public drama makes business partners nervous. Sponsors get twitchy. Networks get cold feet. Co-headliners start asking questions. That is why the whole ecosystem around Shields is watching her Instagram posts almost as closely as her training footage. And if you extend that logic, which people online absolutely have, then Papoose himself could be feeling the ripple effects. His name has been tied to her business moves. His public silence has been read as distance. And distance in the boxing business costs money. Not maybe. Not perhaps. Cost. Money. Actual dollars that appear or vanish depending on whether the room feels stable. Which brings us to the emotional undercurrent of the entire week. The loudest voices online believe that her whole tirade was not about bloggers. It was not about podcasters. It was not about commentators. It was about Papoose. It was about the absence. It was about the silence. It was about the fact that during a weekend meant for public celebration, the man she wanted in her corner was, from her public-facing perspective, not there. And instead of asking him directly, she asked the whole internet. Which is the exact wrong direction to fire a question if you actually want an answer. The internet does not answer. The internet only amplifies. And amplification is not affection. No shoutouts. No supportive reposts. No public affirmation of the relationship during the exact window when a relationship most needs it. Just radio silence from him and a wildfire of activity from her. That imbalance is what fans could not stop staring at. That imbalance is what made every one of her posts feel less like confidence and more like a signal flare. And a signal flare, by definition, is what you fire when you are stranded. That is the metaphor the internet locked onto. That is the metaphor Claressa Shields could not unlock. An army of onlookers concluded, right or wrong, that she was not being treated as the priority she thought she was. Combine that with career pressure. Combine that with fight deal uncertainty. Combine that with the constant, unwinnable comparisons to Remy Ma. And you get a week that feels less like a boxing champion running her brand and more like a woman drowning in her own timeline. Every wave she tried to swim through only pulled her further from the shore. Every stroke was documented. Every gasp was screenshotted. And the online lifeguards were more interested in filming than saving. The other camp fires back that she is a public figure and has every right to defend herself. That is fair. But defense has a price. And the price of defending yourself for 6 straight days on the internet is that every strike, every miss, every wobble becomes part of the permanent record. There is no editing after the fact. There is no take back. The moment your finger presses send, that post belongs to history. And history is not kind to people who fight the tide with their fists. Then came the harder critique. Some viewers questioned why Shields would drop bold, provocative statements about herself when the temperature of the room was already boiling. As a champion, as a professional athlete, they argued, the ring is where the loudest statement gets made. Not the caption box. Not the reply thread. Not the quote tweet chain. The way they see it, every additional statement she typed only lengthened the story instead of ending it. Instead of throwing knockout punches, she was throwing wild jabs that only left her open for counterpunches. And counterpunches, in the online arena, come from every angle at once. Others believe she is trying harder than ever to stay in the spotlight. Others believe the spotlight is exactly what she is trying to control. Still others believe she is simply exhausted, cornered, and running out of moves. Whichever read you sign up for, no matter how you slice it, this week did not shrink her problem. This week I oversized it. Made it bigger. Made it hotter. Made it a permanent chapter in whatever biography eventually gets written about the third act of Claressa Shields' career. And every time she posted, the other camp fired back with the same accusation. Bloggers, podcasters, and commentators are not creating this story. They are covering a story that she herself keeps refreshing. Every reaction video is a response to an actual post. Every headline is tied to an actual statement. Every rant clip is tied to an actual rant. The coverage did not invent the material. The material invented the coverage. And that inversion is the exact reason the whole online ecosystem is currently thriving off of this drama. She is the source. Everybody else is the amplifier. And you cannot get mad at the amplifier when you are the one holding the microphone. Which brings us back to Papoose and the receipts nobody forgets. There is a clip that keeps resurfacing where he reportedly said, "Oh no, never a ring." There is another where he reportedly said, "Oh no, not living together." Those two clips are permanent. Those two clips exist. And every time Shields tries to sell the world on the seriousness of the arrangement, those two clips resurface like a ghost in the group chat. Fans do not forget. Fans screenshot. Fans compile. Fans post. And the compilations are getting longer every month, not shorter. That is not a good direction for a couple trying to prove permanence. Then there is the tattoo. And the tattoo is the dagger. She has publicly displayed a tattoo connected to Papoose. He, to this day, still has a tattoo tied to his wife. That contrast right there is the entire story compressed into 2 square inches of ink. That contrast is why the internet cannot let this go. That contrast is why every attempted repositioning falls flat. 2 tattoos. 2 different truths. 1 massive contradiction. And that right there is the reason the arguments won't quiet down. You cannot laser off public opinion. And you cannot repaint what is already inked into a man's forearm. One popular online personality even compared the situation to a TI lyric, one that suggests a woman can fill somebody's space and still, at the end of the day, be forgotten in his memory. That lyric ricocheted across the timeline this week. It hit like a jab that ended a round. Because whether you agree with the framing or not, the phrase, "fill her space and forget her face," is now permanently attached to this story. And phrases like that do not evaporate. Phrases like that get stitched into the culture. Fans quote it in comments. Podcasters quote it on shows. Meme accounts turn it into captions. That is how a lyric becomes a life sentence in the court of internet opinion. Same as every other week, the loudest voices online argue that dropping personal, intimate claims in a public forum does not answer the bigger questions. It just changes the subject for a few hours. Their argument is simple. The real conversation is about consistency. The real conversation is about actions matching words. The real conversation is about whether the public performance and the private reality are the same story or 2 completely different books. And if they are 2 different books, no amount of caption editing will merge them. Supporters, though, insist that she is a grown woman with the right to run her mouth as freely as she wants. Which is true. Which is also, ironically, the exact reason the story keeps growing, because every mouth run is a fresh headline, and every headline is a fresh comment, and every comment is a fresh minute of watch time for the entire ecosystem covering her. Freedom of speech and freedom of consequences are not the same thing. Claressa Shields has the first. She is currently living in the second. Then Remy Ma came back into the frame. Naturally. Fans dug up an old moment where Remy Ma allegedly warned that this exact situation would get complicated. Some fans see that as validation for Remy Ma. Others see it as pettiness on Remy Ma's part. Both camps are typing hard. But the truth the timeline keeps circling is that Remy Ma and Papoose have a shared history that stretches over a decade, while Shields' connection with him is measured in months. Longevity is not everything, but online, longevity carries weight. And that weight tips the scale in Remy Ma's direction whether it is fair or not. History has a gravity that no press cycle can outrun. And history, in this triangle, sits firmly on Remy Ma's side of the table. That is the verdict a lot of commentators keep landing on. Instead of firing at bloggers and podcasters, the more productive path for her would be to look inward, deal with the actual gap, and let the story starve of oxygen. But starving a story of oxygen requires silence. And silence is the one thing she has not offered the timeline all summer. Silence, in her case, would be the ultimate power move. But silence, in her case, seems to be the one move she cannot make. Not this week. Maybe not this year. The other camp fires back that Papoose himself is the one steering this iceberg. That his choices, his silences, his selective appearances, and his cryptic music clips are the real engine of this drama. And the way they see it, Shields is just the one screaming in the passenger seat. Meanwhile, Papoose keeps driving. Whether that reading is generous to her or unfair to him depends on which chair you are sitting in. But the metaphor sticks because the metaphor fits. One person is loud, the other is steering, and the passengers in the back are the entire internet, filming the ride. But here is the reality nobody can argue. Every new day, every new post, every new interview, every new rumor keeps this story alive. And as long as she keeps typing and he keeps ghosting and Remy Ma keeps winning, the timeline is going to keep eating. This is the perfect storm: celebrity, boxing, hip-hop, marriage, money, and the online arena. All 5 ingredients in one pot. All 5 ingredients boil. And nobody, absolutely nobody, is turning the stove off. Not the parties involved. Not the fans. Not the platforms. Not the algorithm. The stove stays on because everybody is being fed. Look at the receipts one more time. Shields has a fight window that is closing. She has a business deal with moving pieces that depend on that fight. She has a public image that took a beating this week. Papoose has a marriage that is still technically active. He has a wife who has spoken publicly. He has a public silence that keeps saying more than his interviews do. And Remy Ma has a chart position, a movie, a hometown coronation, and the moral high ground that comes from letting other people trip over themselves while she just keeps working. It is the cleanest version of living well is the best revenge the internet has watched in years. The loudest voices online say a champion should let the ring speak. The other camp fires back that every athlete has a right to a personality. Both are true. Both are missing the point. The point is that this week was not about boxing. This week was about identity. Who is Shields when the fight is not scheduled? Who is Papoose when the cameras are not on? Who is Remy Ma when a rival is spiraling? And who are we as viewers when we sit here watching all of it in high definition and pretending we are not part of the machine that keeps it spinning? Those are the questions that outlast every hashtag. That is the question the timeline has not answered yet. That is the question nobody in the story wants to answer. And that is exactly the question that guarantees this saga is not ending this week, next week, or any week soon. Because unanswered questions are the currency of the algorithm. And the algorithm has been paid handsomely this week. Zoom out for a second and look at the whole picture. Boxing has always been about legacy. Hip-hop has always been about longevity. And love, in the public eye, has always been about consistency. This triangle sits at the exact intersection of all three. Shields is fighting for legacy while typing herself into a corner. Papoose is coasting on legacy while playing chess on two boards at once. Remy Ma is compounding legacy while doing the one thing that makes legacy grow, showing up quietly over and over again with better work each time. 3 careers. 3 approaches. 1 shared audience. And that audience just watched one of them shine, one of them stall, and one of them slip. There is also the money conversation nobody is willing to have out loud. Boxing purses, especially in the women's division, are hard-earned and harder guaranteed. Every fight that gets pushed is another 6 months of leverage lost. Every viral rant is another sponsor asking questions in a boardroom she is not in. Every negative headline is a promoter whispering to a network. Shields is the best in her weight class. Nobody honestly disputes that. But the business of boxing is not just about who wins. It is about who sells. And selling requires trust. And trust requires steadiness. And steadiness is not the vibe this week gave off. Then there is the deeper cultural read that certain analysts keep bringing up. They argue that Shields, coming out of Flint, Michigan with 2 Olympic gold medals and the greatest resume in women's boxing history, deserves to be celebrated the same way Remy Ma is being celebrated in New York. But celebration in one city does not automatically translate to celebration in another. And when the trajectory of her personal life keeps getting entangled with a New York icon's ex-husband, the geography of the story starts to matter. New York protects its own. Flint is proud of her, but Flint is not New York's press pool. And this week, New York's press pool made itself heard. Which loops us back to Papoose. Because the more you rewind this whole story, the more it becomes clear that he is the pivot. Every drama, every meme, every reaction video ultimately traces back to him. He is the sun this triangle rotates around, whether he wants the gravity or not. And the way he is playing his role, silent, selective, cryptic, is the exact energy that makes the online arena stay hungry. If he stepped forward, the drama would collapse in a day. If he stepped back further, the drama would collapse in a week. He is doing neither. He is hovering. And hovering in the drama economy is the most engagement-optimized position of all. There is a version of this story where Shields wins. That version starts with silence. Total silence. Not a caption. Not a subtweet. Not a passive-aggressive story on Instagram. Just training footage. Just fight footage. Just quiet, brutal excellence in the ring. That version walks into her next weigh-in as the calmest person in the room, ignores every question about Papoose, and lets her fists write the next chapter. That version has already won 2 Olympic golds and the greatest resume in women's boxing history. She does not need the internet's permission to be great. But that version requires her to trust her own greatness more than she trusts the impulse to respond. And this week, the impulse won. There is also a version of this story where Papoose wins. That version starts with clarity. Not silence, clarity. A statement. A decision. A visible commitment to one direction, whichever direction that is. Fans do not require him to make the choice they would make. Fans require him to make a choice at all. The refusal to choose is what keeps this drama on ice-cold rotation. He is a talented rapper with a legendary work ethic and a devoted fan base. He does not need a triangle to matter. But as long as the triangle exists, his own catalog will keep getting overshadowed by his own personal life. And that is a trade no serious artist should be willing to make forever. And then there is the version where Remy Ma wins. That version, arguably, is already happening. Remy Ma is not typing. Remy Ma is not ranting. She is not responding to bloggers or subtweeting boxers. She is releasing music. She is premiering films. She is holding court at Knicks games. She is stacking wins in silence, and silence is turning out to be the loudest weapon in the entire triangle. That is a masterclass in how to handle public scrutiny. That is a blueprint for anyone who ever finds themselves in the eye of an internet storm. And it is exactly why the loudest voices online keep declaring her the current queen of this whole saga, because she is doing the thing champions do. Working. Winning. Waiting. Everything else is just noise. Zoom back in on the receipts one last time. The unfinished divorce. The unresolved paperwork. The vacation photos that never turned into wedding photos. The tattoo on his forearm that has never been covered. The interview quotes about never wanting a ring. The interview quotes about not living together. The subliminal rap clips. The Father's Day silence. The Knicks celebration he was not part of. The morning show bookings that went to Remy Ma. The fight announcement that never dropped. The $8 million deal with the moving parts. The Alicia Baumgartner tension. The orange hair. The T.I. lyric. The subtweets. The rants. The screenshots. The reaction videos. The comment sections. The group chats. All of it. Every receipt. Every piece of evidence. Every whisper the internet has been trading for months. It all points in one direction. A story that is not over, a triangle that is not stable, and a summer that is going to keep boiling until somebody, anybody, finally decides to turn off the stove. So the mic is officially yours now. Do you think Shields is being unfairly beaten up by an internet that already picked a side? Or do you think her own posts turned her into her own worst opponent this week? Do you think Papoose is playing chess or just dodging? And is Remy Ma really the winner of this whole triangle, or is she just the last one standing while everyone else swings? Drop your take in the comments. The louder the better. This is the kind of story that only gets bigger when the audience shows up. Do not hold back. Do not soften it. This comment section is where the real second half of the story gets written. If this breakdown gave you something to think about, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, share this with the group chat that has been arguing about this all week, and turn on notifications, because the second a fight gets announced, the second he posts, the second she drops another chart topper, we are back on the case. Same face. Same channel. Same energy. Signing off, and I'll see you at the next round of this story, because trust me, the bell is nowhere near ringing. Whatever happens next, a fight card, a comeback caption, a divorce filing, a new collaboration, a surprise appearance, a leaked message, a subliminal lyric, a quiet reconciliation, or a loud implosion. We will be here to break it down the same way we broke down today's chapter. Piece by piece. Layer by layer. Nothing softened. Nothing skipped. Until then, stay locked in, stay talking, and stay watching. The timeline never sleeps. And neither does this story.